high as it is, they're making the case that it hurts, job creation in Ohio. So what about that?
And so they say. And as you speak to those business owners, and they have to consult with their attorney or their accountant, know this, that their attorney or accountant is not going to exempt the sales tax off the activity that they're going to provide advice on. Quite the contrary. As you're shifting the burden around, you're moving seats around on the Titanic. He'll be able to go off on his campaign and say he cut the income tax. He'll be able to say that. He'll be able to argue any number of other taxes that are narrowly defined. But what he will not be able to say is that I cut the sales tax for your purchase of a downloaded application. He won't be able to say that about hundreds of other activities that I've already sketched out. He won't be able to tell Ohioans that the cost of a foreclosure just got more expensive. The cost for any tax filing just got more expensive. These businesses that are cited are now going to have increased costs because of the cost of the sales tax. You're moving dollars around. If this was really about balancing the budget, reducing the growth of government, making government smaller, I assume somebody's going to ask, I know I will as a member of the legislature, if government should be smaller, why isn't your budget reflecting that philosophy? If government has to be smaller, why do you suggest that there's a $1.9 billion surplus when in fact that's not true? There's an $870 million judgment, a verdict against the state of Ohio in Cuyahoga County that demands that overpayments that were made by businesses be returned to those businesses today. That nearly $1 billion obligation is an obligation of the general revenue fund of this state. The governor knows it. The governor is also suggesting that we're going to be providing income tax cuts because the rainy day fund hits its limit. Those dollars are returned, and as I just sketched out, they're returned to the wealthiest among us, rather than the sales tax, which is regressive and punishes consumer behavior.
Sure, what do you think? What do you make of Dale Butler?
Boy, I tell you, Bob doesn't like Dale.
I mean, what do you think?
Like
He's
a
front and
guy.
center on the website, and not you, but
And not me. I'm almost.
Are you insulted?
Almost. I'll just wait for tomorrow's dispatch to get my fill. I don't know why this attention to a person we all know and most of us respect. I respect a great deal. Dale doesn't attend many of our meetings. He works for Innovation Ohio, smart guy, been in the business, communications business for many, many years. But he evidently has gotten under Bob Bennett's skin. He evidently has gotten under John Kasich's skin because for me to have a website and then put some Chris Littleton's picture up on it's laughable. It's a waste of time and energy for you and I to even to debate it. What can't be debated is the things that Dale has suggested are true because they are. Dale Butlin and I and others, Democrats, Republicans, have already said that punishing consumers and increasing the sales tax by $2-3 billion, expanding the government at a record level, all the while rewarding the wealthiest among us with a taxing cut, that's not going to grow our state's economy. Standing up with the president saying we ought to save the American automobile industry, that is something that tangibly people can look at back and say, that saved Ohio's economy.
Chris, why don't we just cut to the chase? This is just really about the 2014 election because Bob's got Dale, okay, we all know Dale, but he's not running for anything. But Nina Turner was up there, Connie Pillage was up there on the website, John Carney. And you promised a long time ago that at the beginning of this year or sooner that your intent was to make Kasich a one-term governor.
Yes.
So aren't these dueling press conferences, isn't that all this is about?
Well, we like to call this a press of bail.
Well, press of bail. So you guys didn't agree on that.
But I, as you know, Paul, didn't call it until after I saw Mark's posting and your tweets. And I thought, well, by golly, Bob just can't get away with saying whatever he wants to say and not be challenged. And it's not a reach to say that there's $2 billion in new taxes. It's not a reach to say that your trip to the barber just went up. And I read this morning that this notion that John Kasich is going to be able to go down to Chillicothe and tell people that, well, your sales tax on that haircut, if the tax had been imposed, we cut that, 2 cents. I mean, it's just laughable. It's billions of dollars in new tax hikes. And so when Bob says, these doggone Democrats are lying, I think he said, they're misrepresenting the facts, paraphrasing. What exactly am I paraphrasing? I can pull out the language, the more than 340 school districts that don't get an increase in funding after a few days ago you stood before superintendents and you said everybody's going to be happy with this budget. I can stand here and say to you, after the governor said that he was going to cut the budget, it actually increases to a record level. I could hold this budget up and say that in fact the promises that you made in the 2010 campaign, that you would reduce the size of government, that you would reduce the reach of government, those were false promises. Never before, Paul, in our lifetimes, has a governor said to the county commissioners, I know more than you do. And I'm going to cut your local government fund, and then I'm going to tell you can't make up the difference at the local level for the sheriff's department. If he wants to run for Ottawa County Commissioner, he ought to. Soon he will be unemployed and he'll have the chance to make that decision. And the differences between what the Democrats stand for in the legislature and across the state will become more and more clear through the coming months of this campaign, whether it's in the gubernatorial cycle or those running down ticket who are going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Bob Taft and John Kasich and say to them, raising taxes was the right idea. You remember the 2005 budget cycle, and you all know what happened in 2006.
Yes.
Short answer, yes, Paul.
What are your thoughts on seeing Senator Turner and Representatives Pillage and Carney? Do you think he's scared?
Am I scared?
Do you think Chairman Bennett is scared? What are your thoughts on seeing...
Bob, he is in the final weeks of his term. He won't be confronted by the campaigns next year because he's announced he's retiring. And I'm not making any judgments on that. That's just kind of the reality. It appears Matt Borges, who was once convicted of a crime, is going to be of a crime involving public dollars, is soon going to be the spokesperson, the face of the Ohio Republican Party. At the same time, we have a replication of Tim Keene's ideas, Bob Taft's ideas from 2005. I don't know what Bob Bennett is feeling, his emotion in terms of being scared or concerned. I can tell you this, he knows we're coming. He knows that this party is energized and this base is strong, and he knows this, that he's got problems internally in his party because Bob Bennett is tasked with traveling this state and convincing Tea Party Republicans that the largest expansion of Medicaid is going to be a good thing for them. I've already believed that. I've believed that for years. But he's got to engage Chris Littleton. I wonder what Chris thinks about this. Or Matt Meyer. Is it pronounced Meyer or Meyer? Mayor. How he thinks about it.
So now that we have school numbers, I guess what are the next going to push for?
Well, his funding plan abandons poorest districts, those that are struggling the most. And I get the debate about school choice and vouchers, but if you live in Perry County, what are your choices? If you live in Gahanna, perhaps you may have a choice. But if you live in an overwhelming number of school districts in the state, you're punished by your zip code. And in Perry County and Lawrence County, most parts of the southeast, you've seen all the figures, there's no increase from the state. And just a few days ago, at his fancy town hall meeting, some of you attended that, he wandered the aisles telling superintendent, all will be good. He was trying to convert the skeptics among them. The only thing he was missing was a trip down to the Scioto River. I must tell you that rhetorical flourishes, false promises, fabrications cannot stand and will not stand. This is a moral document. Budgets are moral documents. It's what a governor's campaign, it's what a governor's term rests upon. This governor's budget is prefaced in the notion that if you reward the wealthiest and the richest you will receive your reward with reelection.